Hello there, and thank you so much for joining us for Ebru Primetime News of this 12th day of September 2018. We are coming to you live from Toranj restaurant here in Lavington. On this day, revelations emerged that 10,000 Kenyans could have lost their jobs due to contraband sugar flooding the Kenyan market. Also, 3.6 million bags of maize could be of poor quality, according to findings by a Senate committee. Hello there once more and welcome to the program. But first, let's take a look at the headlines.
It wasn't me. Governor Okoth Obado distances himself from Sharon Otieno murder as suspect to be held for 14 days. Unsweetened maize. Condemnation on contraband sugar wage on as details now emerge of millions of bags of poor quality maize in silos.
Welcome to the program once more. My name is Eric Mnene. Now, details have emerged that 3.6 million bags of maize are of poor quality, which will force the government to sell at a throwaway price. The Senate ad hoc committee probing the Ministry of Agriculture and NCPB officials on the maize crisis in the country has also found that the National Cereals and Produce Board, NCPB, will have to count their losses as they will be forced to sell the bags of maize to millers at a throwaway price.
Barely weeks after the office of the DPP and that of IECC carried out investigations into the loss of 11.3 billion shillings supposed to pay genuine farmers who supplied their produce to the government, the ad hoc Senate committee today tasked the NCPB CEO to explain on what seemed to be a handful cup of fake suppliers who received millions of money meant to pay the now languishing common and genuine farmers.
Depot managers have, corruptly colluded with, some business people to sell more than they deserve. For example, if a farmer is supposed to get 200 bags, he's given, 500 bags. Those are illegal.
And when asked about fertilizer support cash distributed to the farmers to find out criteria of money distribution, answers were a bit vague.
And who had colluded with depot managers, cereal board depot managers, to get more than they're supposed to get. The ideal situation which should happen in the distribution of fertilizer is that there's specific amount of fertilizer which is supposed to be given to a certain farmer, depending on the acreage and depending on the amount of land.
And for the pending payments supposed to be disbursed to those suppliers who oversupplied to the NCPB board, things seemed better.
Point out that we have not been directed by any court to not to pay those people who have oversupplied. There are no regulations in place to tell us not to pay those farmers. At the end of the day, they will be...
The two NCPB officers put to task on expounding the nitty-gritties of the board to the Senate committee had a hard time explaining the strategies they have put in place to restock and compensate for the already expired maize.
Like what we have now of 3.6 million bags of 90 kilos, because we are not going to sell everything. Whatever has reached the expiry period, we need to replace and buy new maize every year so that we maintain. 3.6. It is supposed to be 4 million.
Last season, 16 suspects were arrested and arraigned in court, having been linked to illegal purchase and payment of maize to cartels by NCPB. For Ebru TV, I'm Ode Francis.
Well, moving on, at a time when Kenyans are in dire need of employment, the contraband sugar issue has put nearly 10,000 workers out of their jobs. These are the sentiments of COSO through their Secretary General, Francis Atwoli. The union is now calling for the government to bring those who were named in the saga to book so that Kenyans can be saved from losing their jobs. Our reporter Bonareri Samaha tells us more.
The Secretary General of the Central Organization of Trade Unions, Francis Atwoli, is decrying the fact that the stolen sugar is allegedly being repackaged into brand names like Mumias and Sony, yet the government promised to destroy it.
We were made to believe that irregularly or illegally imported sugar will be destroyed. To date, it has not been destroyed. It is still finding its way into our shelves. Under the brand of Mumias, under the brand of Zoia, under the brand of Sodi. This is serious.
The Secretary General has appealed to the government to take action against all those allegedly involved in importing the illegal sugar.
Those importers are still working scot-free. Nobody has been brought to book. Those are the dangers of corruption. And as COSO, we have supported His Excellency the President on fighting corruption, believing that it is a serious fight where people will be bundled in court, convicted, licenses cancelled, and instead, the way 10,000 shillings was flying in Parliament, it is also flying in some other quarters in government offices. These are very serious.
Atwoli has also intimated that COSO is in court over the 16% levy on petroleum products because it has made life unbearable for Kenyans.
This is the truth. We were made to believe that immediately His Excellency the President jets in, we will have a social tripartite meeting to look into this issue of 16% on VAT. To date, no meeting has been convened. That is very serious. 2, 5 months down the line, Kenya government increased minimum wage by 5%. It has not gazetted. Lazima hii 16% VAT itafutiwe njia ili mwananchi wa kawaida apate breathe. Watu hawezi kununua mkate, watu hawezi kununua sukari, watu hawezi kununua mafuta, watu hawezi kununua chakula, transport imekuwa ni hatari.
Bonareri Samaha for Ebru TV.
To courts now, and Michael Oyamo, who is the main suspect in the murder of Rongo University student Sharon Otieno, will remain in police custody for 14 days as investigations continue. Oyamo was presented in court this morning but did not take plea as the prosecution sought for more time. Now, Justice Luka Kimaru agreed with the prosecution side, and now Oyamo will be presented before Justice Jesse Lesit on the 26th of this month. This is as Migori Governor Okoth Obado broke his silence on the issue, saying he was not involved.
Oyamo, who was released and later on rearrested, appeared before Justice Luka Kimaru of the High Court Wednesday morning. He was slated to take plea on murder charges, but the prosecution sought for more time to conclude investigations.
Very clear, we only required 14 days to enable the investigators conduct proper investigations. We are very much aware that murder trials can only be tried by the High Court. And the country is pregnant, awaiting to see who the suspects are, and we are making our undertakings. Once we finish our investigations, everyone will be subjected to the same treatment.
The defense differed sharply with the prosecution's plea, arguing that the quest for more time was clear indication that the prosecution had nothing on Oyamo, considering the fact that he had already been a guest of the state for 7 days now.
Based on the own submission of Mr. Imbali, in his own words, that they need time to assess data which might give rise to a link between the accused person and the offense, and the word he used is might. My Lord, this means that as we stand before you today, 1 week down the line, there is nothing that links the subject to the offense.
Justice Kimaru granted the prosecution 14 more days, stating that the matter at hand is multifaceted that requires thorough investigations at great depth.
On the merits of the application, this court agrees with the prosecution that due to the multifaceted and complex nature of the investigation that involves many suspects and many leads, it is only fair that the subject continues to be detained for a further period of 14 days.
On the flip side, Migori Governor COSO Bado has broke his silence over his alleged links with the gruesome murder. Addressing the press this afternoon, Obado distanced himself from the matter that shocked the nation.
As a law-abiding citizen, I want to state here very, very clearly and very categorically that I have nothing and absolutely nothing to do with the cruel death of Sharon.
While all that was going on, calls for speedy investigations into the murder continue being echoed, this time by a section of university students. Anthony Manyara is the chair of the Kenyatta University Students' Union.
I would like to tell the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission that we are not giving that person 2 days. We are giving that person 24 hours to ensure that they have addressed that matter of Sharon. It is not a request, it is a must.
For now, Oyamo will be remanded at the Muthaiga police station until the 26th of this month, when he will be presented before Justice Jesse Lesit, the head of the murder section of the High Court.
He shall be detained at Muthaiga police station. During his detention, his rights and fundamental freedoms that are guaranteed by the Constitution shall be protected. He shall be brought to court after the expiry of 14 days, where the prosecution shall be required to have him formally charged, or he shall be released.
Well, to other news now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i has addressed the way forward on strategic service delivery that will improve the national police service. This comes after the ministry was given a 30-day ultimatum by President Uhuru Kenyatta that will see an overhaul in the national police service. Ode Francis tells us more.
Direct the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior and the Inspector General to provide to me within 30 days a comprehensive policy framework and strategy with clear, actionable recommendations on how to improve efficiency and effectiveness, as well as to address the persisting problems of housing in the National Police Service.
Interior Cabinet Fred Matiang'i is expected to address on the ministry's efforts so far on measures that would be put in place to improve the National Police Service. Matiang'i, along with the Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet, were on Tuesday given a 30-day ultimatum by President Uhuru Kenyatta to come up with a strategic service delivery to improve the National Police Service.
My administration has been on an accelerated investment program.
The duo were tasked to come up with a comprehensive policy framework and strategy on how to improve efficiency and effectiveness in the National Police Service, while at the same time addressing the inadequate housing officers live in.
A comprehensive policy framework and strategy.
An increase of 30,000 more officers have then been added to the National Police Service since 2013 to beat the current ratio of police to population estimated at 1:425, with more funds of up to 53.6 billion shillings in 2013 to 97.6 billion shillings in the 2018-2019 financial year. Elite team of police officers were to be recruited by August this year, a plan rolled in early February by the CS Fred Matiang'i. 800 fresh graduates were targeted to join the police service. For Ebru TV, I'm Ode Francis.
Well, moving on, the Treasury has refuted claims that it has not honored a court order to halve the 16% VAT on fuel products. Appearing before the Senate Committee on Energy this afternoon, the Chief Administrative Secretary of Treasury, Nelson Gishui, said they have not violated any law as the Bungoma High Court is yet to serve them with orders. The CAS added that the imposition of the 16% is in line with the 2013 Act that was passed by Parliament.
Kenyans will continue enduring the pain of the 16% value-added tax, VAT imposed on petroleum products. Until now, even with progressive meetings among the Treasury Ministry officials, the Parliament and even the President, there seems to be no white smoke at the end. This might now force the majority of the Kenyans, more so the motorists, to pinch more from their pocket to acquire this important commodity called fuel, which has led to the increase of bus fares. Despite the Bungoma High Court issuing the orders to stop the 16% VAT, the Treasury Ministry now insists that they have not been served with the court orders.
And one Kenyan went to court and sought specific court orders to stop this thing until the matter.
So until we are served, and then, of course, once we are served, we also have an option to appeal. Yeah? So I would say right now we cannot talk of anything about sports because once we are served, we have that option. You know, I'm not saying we'll appeal, but we have an option also.
Appearing before the Senate Parliamentary Committee on Energy, Treasury Chief Administrative Secretary Nelson Geshu insisted that they must be served through the normal process. They defended its decision not to halt the implementation of the 16% VAT on fuel.
I asked you, has Treasury...
This might now force the Kenyans to shelve off their ambitions to President Uhuru Kenyatta to assent to the Finance Bill of 2018.
What are you doing within the Treasury? Are you consulting maybe with the President? Because you're saying the onus now lies on the President.
No, I can say we are really consulting between Parliament, between the Presidency and Treasury. There's a lot of consultations going on. Actually, I think even in one of the agendas of today's meeting, and that is why the Cabinet Secretary is not here.
Okay.
Of course, VAT will also be among the...
According to the CAS, is that if the 16% VAT is not implemented, the country will lose about 35 billion Kenyan shillings, which will affect the service delivery on matters of security, free primary education, and others. They also say the implementation of the 16% VAT is in line with the 2013 bill passed by the Parliament.
I asked you, has Treasury done a costing in terms of the impact of having the VAT?
If you recall very well, that time there was talk that this thing is happening because of IMF. Yes. But I clarified very clearly that it is not about IMF, it's about the VAT Act 2020. Basically what happened is Parliament or National Assembly acted, but I think until it is assented to.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich last week held a crisis meeting with the National Assembly leadership over the 16% fuel tax. The closed-door meeting, which lasted for close to 2 hours, did not bear any fruit. Rotich is now said to have met President Uhuru Kenyatta over the controversial fuel tax with an intent of bringing hopes to Kenyans. Reporting for Ebru TV, I'm Jeff Khaemba.
Kenya University Students Organization COSO has called on the courts to hasten Sharon's murder case so as to ensure justice has been served. While addressing the issue, COSO Chairman Anthony Manyara also urged the government to increase university help loans from 40,000 shillings to 60,000 shillings. Our reporter Njerin Jogu attended the conference and tells us more.
The association expressed its shock, sorrow and condemnation over the gruesome murder of Sharon Otieno, thereby offering their condolences to the family and friends of the fellow comrade.
Today, we stand in solidarity with Rongo students, Sharon's family and friends. The association offers its deepest condolences to the family, friends, and fellow students of Sharon.
COSO Chair Anthony Manyara now appeals to the authorities to hasten investigations so as to ensure justice is put in place. He also urges the government to beef up security in the learning institutions in order to ensure that the cream of this country, the youth, are not being lost.
We as comrades, we are really saddened by the death of Sharon Otieno, and we remain on course to ensure that justice must be taken.
Today, we are not going to play the gender card. rule, because this is an infringement on the rights of human beings and which are inherent to human beings. There's nobody in this country who has a right to take away a life of a fellow human being. And it is so sad, the surrounding circumstances under which Sharon died. We are not going to divide into the issue. We are not going to get into the issue on that matter. But we are just going to condemn it.
Manyara also calls upon the public to refrain from misplaced perception and give authorities time to investigate, adding that the Kenya Human Rights Commission needs to take action within 24 hours, of which failure to do so, protest seeking Sharon's justice shall rock the streets.
I would like to tell the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission that we are not giving that person 2 days. We are giving that person 24 hours to ensure that they have addressed that matter of Sharon. It is not a request, it is a must.
The student leaders now want the government to increase student help loans from 40,000 shillings to 60,000 shillings by next week. Failure to which they warn they shall sort to protest.
Help must be released, and it's not a request, it is a must. Next week, if help is not released, next week, we'll go to the streets as we have always gone.
Comrades, power!
We are coming from all the universities. We will go to CS Amina Mohammed. It must be put as a policy that help must be increased from 40,000 to 60,000 so that it caters for the living standards of all the comrades.
With regards to VAT, COSO told of Treasury CS Henry Rotich of imposing further costs to the public coffers, advising him to come up with other ways of creating revenue. They are also calling upon the president not to sign the finance bill into law. Njeri Njogo for Ebru TV.
Well, moving on, leaders from Baringo County have called upon the government to put measures to curb the rising insecurity in the region. This comes barely a day after an attack was carried out in Mukten Ward in Baringo South.
Led by a member of County Assembly, Joseph Leparsarach, the leaders highly condemned the attacks and killings in Mukten Ward and called on the Ministry of Internal Security to address the issue of insecurity once and for all.
We received sad news that people of Mukten Ward, where one honorable member represents, were attacked at around 11 in the morning. And they were actually clearing a small portion, as you know that part of Mukten Ward is displaced and it's not it is inhabitable.
They are also alleging the attacks are being planned and incited by the politicians from the area.
And so we are demanding that Honorable Mailuk and Honorable Salamoy be summoned to record statements and investigations be done exactly what they said in Mukutani and have them arrested and prosecuted in a court of law.
However, they are calling on the security forces to investigate and arrest those found culpable of the attacks.
We would wish Professor Lonyangapo to be investigated on the role that he has in Baringo. He is the governor of West Pokot, but we have taken note of certain developments, enormous visits that he has made to Baringo County. And in Baringo County, we have a county, we have a governor, and we have a leadership, and we have a structure.
The leaders have launched unity calls in the area, calling on young people to desist from being used by politicians in the wrong way. Busara Naman, Ebru TV.
Well, now let's stay with that Baringo story, and I have with me right here live at the Toranj restaurant in Lavington our guest, Mwendo Minjiwe, who's a security expert. He'll be telling us about what is actually involved in such incidents. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Our open studio.
Yes, thank you. It's a lovely place to be.
Thank you. So, Narok. Just last week we were talking about Narok.
Yeah.
This week we hear of Baringo. We've had Lamu. And in all these incidents, it's like there's one thread that is running, you know, a common thread that we're in studio.
Yes, thank you. It's a lovely place to be.
Thank you. So, just last week we were talking about Narok.
Yeah.
This week we hear of Baringo. We've had Lamu. And in all these incidents, it's like there's one thread that is running, you know, a common thread that runs through all of them. What is it about?
A situation where criminals and evildoers seem to get away with it, and security apparatus, government agencies seem to be caught unaware. This is particularly, you know, very incessant in areas like Lamu, where Al-Shabaab, you know, sympathizers and terrorists are planting improvised explosive devices on the roads and almost daily killing our defense forces personnel, almost, you know, on a daily basis. You look at areas like, you know, Baringo and, you know, surrounding areas, Capedo and such other areas. These have been very restive regions for a long time. And so the main question here is government, you know, getting challenged, you know, in dealing with these situations? Is this an issue that is greater than what government can handle? These are questions that, you know, government operators and agencies should be able to grapple with really seriously, and they are telling on them very badly.
Well, we've had security incidents in, you know, incidences in places like, you know, border areas. Well, and when I said, when we began the interview, is that there's a common thread that runs through all these incidents. And then now we're seeing leaders from Baringo County coming out to, you know, challenge the government and telling the government, you know, what, you need to up your game, our people are dying. But these same leaders have been implicated in a lot of, you know, incidents as those who, you know,
perpetrate
them.
Yeah, I mean, you see, Narok is right inside the nation, really, almost the heart of our country. What we could be witnessing in Narok is a situation of insecurity like we've had, you know, in areas like Baringo and Capedo, which are almost again at the heart of the country. But the Narok one is almost a new one, to the extent that it's shocking people. Of course, we've had, you know, the incessant and almost recurring security situations in Transmara area, where it's the borderline between the Kalenjin and the Abagusi nations. But it's never been to the extent that government cannot control. Occasionally, when the altercations in that area, we've seen general service unit personnel and other police agencies sent there, and that was quelled quickly. So Narok, I think Narok is bleeding. It's a situation that begs for answers, that begs for action, and if we do nothing about it now, then we could end up with a, you know, a perennial problem like we have in Baringo.
Well, and when I said, when we began a new World Bank report has appraised the digital space as an enabler in bringing employment opportunities to the developing world. The report released early this month by the Solutions for Youth Employment Coalition indicates that digital economy has the ability to increase jobs, more so among women.
The report, titled Digital Jobs for Youth by the World Bank, lays out how jobs in the digital economy can increase young women's productivity, earnings and financial independence. It, however, noted issues with gender disparity still persist in the digital economy. Globally, the share of women using the internet is 12% lower than that of men, as over 1.2 billion women in low and middle income countries do not use mobile internet. However, it noted that digital jobs can help reduce long-standing occupational segregation, including in the IT sector. Currently, women account for only 38% of human capital wealth worldwide compared to 62% of men. While digital technology continues to create new forms of work, the absence of appropriate policies will prevent it from being fully inclusive. The report examines public and private sectors' initiatives that aim to close the gender gap in the digital economy. According to Mamadou Bitaya, the managing director for Africa at the Rockefeller Foundation, policymakers and practitioners can increase the labor force participation among women by supporting programs that address specific needs. The report also provides operational recommendations in designing and implementing gender-inclusive interventions for young women seeking to enter the digital economy. It is estimated that close to $160 trillion in wealth is lost due to gender inequality in earnings, with unemployment rates for youth reported at over 300% higher than those for adults. Young women are at a higher risk of exclusion, according to the report. Kevin Kabuya, Ebru TV Business.
And when I said when we began the interview is that there's a common thread that runs through all these incidents. And then now we're seeing leaders from Baringo County coming out to, challenge the government and telling the government, what you need to up your game, our people are dying. But these same leaders have been implicated in a lot of, incidents as those who,
perpetrate them.
Yeah, perpetrate them.
And that now brings the nexus between political leadership and security of our country, or insecurity of our country. If we cannot strike a middle ground where politics can just go so far, and security and national security to that extent can go so far, if we can't strike the balance, then we could be at fault in overplaying one over the other. For example, we can emphasize political correctness too much that we compromise our national security by compromising the security of our regions. Because it's the same politician who says, you're pressing my people hard when we go for guns, from them, those that have illegal guns. Government says, bring all illegal guns, return them or register them like they did in Isiolo. But then the political leaders come and say, no, watu wetu, our people are being oppressed. We must come to a point where we know politics can only go so far. Yet, national security or security operations can also not go too far. You can't take them to the extent that you violate people's rights, of life, human rights. You can't take them too far to, interfering with the right to association and free movement of people. If we push national security, or what we call in political science human security, if we push human security to the extent where we compromise individual security, then again, and take the rights of people away, then we are at fault. So we must get our players, political and security players, strike the balance and get to a consensus where you can only do so far, go so far, say so much, and yet do our politics and leadership, and at the same time do our security, because one depends on the other and the other depends on the other. It's like, an hypostatic relationship. You can't have one without the other, and you can't have the other without the other one.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You've talked about something there, about the government going for guns, illegal guns, in the hands of citizens. When it comes to disarmament, do you think the government, can probably look the other way in areas like Turkana, areas that we border countries that have bandits who come inside our country, and probably issue licenses to, in order to create something, a sort of a buffer zone between us and our country, and probably issue licenses to, in order to create something, a sort of a buffer zone between us, the people in the inland Kenya and those who are outside.
That hypothesis has always been going around, that actually, you send it more politely, let me make it as raw as they say it out there, that government has allowed its citizens along the border of countries that aggress on us with weapons, like Topoza from South Sudan, and the warriors, the Oromo warriors from Ethiopia, that there's the hypothesis that government has allowed Kenyans who live along that border and the nomadic communities around those areas to keep guns. Now, that hypothesis is wrong. is wrong in all the parameters, because the government of the day is the implementer of what we call social contract.
Mm-hmm.
Social contract is where I don't have to guard myself. My business is to pay taxes, even if it's 16% levy on fuel, which has now happened. I'm willing to pay it, so long as I don't have to watch, my life. My security is guaranteed. Even if I'm living, at the border of Kenya and Somalia, in areas like Klafe, in Mandela, I need someone in government to protect me. I want to go to my house, sleep at peace, wake up, go to school, go to, watch over my cattle, and I don't want to worry that Al-Shabaab is going to cross the border. Then government must, be government at that point in my life as a citizen of this country. If I have to carry my gun to protect myself, then government has failed and sincerely have no business, paying taxes. Even the 16% fuel levy, they should reduce it for me if I have to watch over myself. So really, if the citizens of Kenya along those areas have weapons, then government has failed in protecting them. Number two, government can still go further and register those weapons. Because again, the whole of Africa, the Great Lakes region, we have the problem of the proliferation of small arms. They are almost everywhere. They are committing, crimes left, right, and center. The same weapons are being used to kill our wildlife when they are not killing our people. So, if we cannot know who has what weapons, then we risk, the security of the region. And if there are weapons in the northern corridor, in the northern region of our country, then government needs to move with speed like it did in Isiolo and say, hey, we're not going to take your weapon. Just let us know you have it. So they will know Bijiwe has AK-47, Kamau has, Jidri, Ekuru Aukot has this number of rounds. So government just needs to know what weapons are in the hands of people.
Welcome to the day's sports. Now, the midweek international friendly matches that took place on Tuesday saw Brazil is past El Salvador to thrash them 5-0 at the FedEx Field in Maryland. Neymar scored through a penalty awarded in the second minute, followed by a brace from Everton's forward Richarlison, then a goal by Philippe Coutinho and a late header by Marquinhos. Meanwhile, the U.S. men's national team beat its rival Mexico in Nashville 1-0 as Argentina and Colombia drew 0-0 in a match that did little to cheer fans of either side, hoping for a boost after disappointing World Cup showings.
Long ball forward, trying to turn to the... looking for the goal as he turns. You can see that it was a brave, calculated challenge. This is a wonderful penalty, of course. The goalkeeper always off his line and slips it beautifully through. Always a little time. Look out. Here they come again. Has his account started. Neymar knows how difficult that is to put away. Look, this ball fed in, and it's just absolutely with the geometry right. Better than... But out of the, now at the edge of the 18. Well, wonderful setup again, invading the Coutinho, Brazil, full pass. Waiting, drops far and it rattles away. Neymar tackled, draws the defender in, little touch past him. Is that diving? He is, but the launch right here. How about this call? And he says he's got to be kidding.
Here's now an interesting one. Liberian President George Weah, who is also a former World Footballer of the Year, made a surprise return to international football and featured for 79 minutes for a 2-1 home defeat by Nigeria in Monrovia. Liberia arranged the friendly to retire their number 14 shirt worn by Weah at his playing peak, and he received a standing ovation as he was substituted. However, George Weah, as he was being named the 1995 I'll take that again, I beg your pardon. However, George Weah was being named the 1995 World Footballer of the Year. He also won the Ballon d'Or in the same year and remains the only African to win